call this committee the whole meeting for September 5th, 2023 to order. Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Alderman Yamas.
Here.
Alderwoman Garza.
Here.
Alderman Masiacos.
Present.
Alderman Donnell.
Here.
Alderman Franco.
Here.
Alderman Seville.
Here.
Alderwoman Smith.
Here.
Alderman Bug.
Here.
Alderwoman Bade.
Here.
Alderman Lash.
Present.
Alderman Warman.
Here.
Mayor Irvin's present.
Is there a motion to approve the minutes of the
So
August
moved.
15th, 2022
Second.
meeting? Committee of the whole meeting as presented. Motion made by Alderman Smith, second by Alderman Garza. All those in favor?
Aye.
Motion carries by voice vote. Mr. Muhammad, before we go into public comment, were we going to do the presentations starting off?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, City Council. We're going to move the mayor's report up on the agenda. September is National Suicide Prevention Awareness Month, and we know we have some amazing organizations here in the community who help us in that regard, including Simply Destiny. So Marty Luna, one of the founders, Martin Luna, one of the founders of Simply Destiny, is here with us, and the mayor will be issuing the city's proclamation, and Marty will have some information to share with you about an event coming up this weekend. So we'll turn it over to you, Mayor, for the presentation. Marty, if you can come on down. We give Marty a round of applause.
Today, I'd like to read this proclamation. It's for National Suicide Prevention Awareness Month, September 2023. Whereas September is National Suicide Prevention Awareness Month and is intended to help promote awareness surrounding each of the suicide prevention resources available to us in our community. And whereas each year, more than 700,000 people throughout the world die by suicide. And suicide affects everyone regardless of age, gender, race, orientation, income level, religion, or background. And whereas local organizations like Simply Destiny and Suicide Prevention Services are on the front lines of the battle, and services like 988 can be a literal lifeline for those struggling with mental health issues and suicidal thoughts. And whereas I encourage all residents to take time to understand mental health through education and recognize that we need to take care of our mental health while we take care of each other. And whereas I encourage all residents to take the time to inquire as to the well-being of their families, their friends, their neighbors over the next few days, and to generally convey their appreciation and love for their existence and any gesture they deem appropriate. Now, therefore, I, Mayor Richard C. Irvin, do hereby proclaim September as National Suicide Prevention Awareness Month in the city of Aurora.
Thank you very much, you guys, for this proclamation. It really means a lot to us. This Sunday is Suicide Awareness Day, but of course with Fiestas Patrias, we know that the city of Aurora will be celebrating that. So we are moving our candle vigil to Monday at 6:30 p.m. at Millennium Plaza. So for anyone who has lost anyone to suicide or just wants to be an ally and support, we will be at Millennium Plaza at 6:30 p.m. For a candle vigil. And just thank you very much for the city for helping, hosting, and sponsoring this event and showing what it is that we can do when we stand together.
Let's give Martin Luna and Simply Destiny a round of applause.
Thank you so much. And Mayor, we'll bring you out in just a second. Again, we have a presentation before as well. Thank you, Marty, and your love to your sister as well. We know the loss of his niece. A number of years ago, Destiny Leva brought forth not only Simply Destiny, but a new level of awareness for suicide prevention and awareness here in Aurora. So we appreciate your family and your organization. Mental health is so important, and so is physical health. We're joined today with us by a leader of our physical health here in Aurora. She has a big event this weekend. Faith Young is an MSN RN, our community faith nurse with our local hospitals, local churches. In 2014, she was recruited to promote health and wellness in the Fox Valley region, particularly the black churches. In 2016, she was honored by Compañeros en Salud for her outstanding work for Aurora's Latino community as well. In 2018, Congressman Foster presented Faith with a Taking Back Our Community Outstanding Neighbor Award. In 2019, she coordinated a team that secured the first place award for the largest Chicago Gospel Run 5K team, which was comprised of over 150 African Americans from the general area. If you remember back to 2021 when we were all on Zoom, she was acknowledged as one of our healthcare heroes during a city council meeting in March of 2021 that year. Now we're so honored to have her back to officially present her the award from a number of years ago when we were on Zoom, but to share a little bit more about the disparities here in Aurora briefly and a big event she has coming on this Saturday. If you can give a round of applause to Faith Nyong.
Thank you so much, Clayton. I really appreciate it. And good evening to everyone. Thank you all so much for giving me a moment just to talk about what I feel is a really concerning health statistic for this. It really impacts the city of Aurora. So there's a Kane County health data that I'm given when I ask for updates on health equity. And so you have the packets in front of you, and so this one is about life expectancy. So if you look at the chart, you can see that in Kane County, where really African Americans are really comprised the most in Aurora, it's over 70% of the African American Kane County population resides in Aurora, so it's kind of an Aurora issue. Everyone else lives until they're 81 years old, approximately, on average. And African Americans live until they're 75. But then there's also another statistic, if you look over on the right, and I apologize for those of you in the room that can't see, but I'll explain it to you. It's called years of life lost. It's a calculation that we can now do to see how many years of life an individual would still be alive. So when you look at African Americans, this number is not based on 81, it's based on 75, because that's the average life expectancy for an African American in our city. And so when we also look at that, we see that over 11,000 years of life are lost every 1 to 2 years. So that's egregious. And so I just want to make sure that people are aware of that, because sometimes if you're not in the healthcare field and looking at these numbers, you don't know. And so the Gospel Run Walk is a really important event. Although it takes place in the city of Chicago, with the support of Ascension, we've been able to get funds to help African Americans in our community begin an exercise program, continue an exercise program, get started. For those of you that exercise on a regular basis, you can understand that for some people it's challenging. And so this really gives everyone a nice jump start, right, to learning how to exercise, getting out there and walking. So on Saturday, September 9th, we're going to be taking 100 African Americans right here from our city and busing them to Chicago. So what the ask is that we're really close, because we always have the largest team. In 2019, we had over 300 people. So we're kind of building it back up since COVID. So anybody that is interested, we would love for you to register for the event with us. And participate. If you can't come to the city, we're saying please do it virtually in support of our team. And just to really get the information out there, we're going to have a Zoom with one of our premier health experts in the city on Zoom. And so for those that want to do it virtually or at another time on Saturday, we would just appreciate the support. So that's pretty much it. Any questions for me about that?
Questions?
Sure.
Any questions? Alderman?
How many people are you short?
Well, we want
100?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So right now, even though we're coming from like the Fox Valley area, the largest team has 180, and the second largest right now has, I think, 125. So we're literally we could take second place, and that's really awesome when you think that we're coming from Aurora. We're not in the city, and so it gets a lot of attention. So Channel 5 will be out there, and we just want to really show the city of Chicago how serious we in the Fox Valley, Aurora area are about African American health.
Thank you.
So,
And just to be clear,
Yes, sir.
you want support from everyone. It doesn't have to be an African-American individual that's out there.
No. Thank you for making that clarity. So it's for African Americans and lovers of African Americans, I like to say. For instance, we have the ICU intensivist at Ascension that is joining me just because she really wants to support and wants to show, that she's concerned about African American health. So it doesn't have, no, you do not have to be African American. But it is a beautiful thing to see, right? When you go to the city of Chicago, we take up a portion of Lakeshore Drive. It's such a positive event with inspirational gospel music playing. It is family friendly. There's no foul language or liquor at this event because it's a really beautiful picture of African American health. And I guess the last thing I want to just leave you guys to think about is, so Ascension does have me focused on African American health. We know that Sunday is somewhat of a segregated day of the week, and so African Americans, more or less go to African American churches. So they did plant me there. But I also think it's important for other health organizations to be focused on African American health. I'm just talking today about one statistic. I could go through the gamut about what's going on here as far as health equity is concerned. But that's all the time I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Alderman Book?
Thank you. Can you get this to Clayton in PDF or Rich Jacobs, our Chief of Staff, and we can?
Absolutely. So do you want it emailed, or do you want copies of that? Because I have copies of that, and I can also email it to him as well.
Yeah, email.
It's a pleasure.
Getting it out to the masses. Thank you.
Thank you.
A round of applause for Faith Young. Faith Young, MSN and RN.
Okay. So since then, I have gotten my doctorate.
Well, Dr. Faith Young, this is the Mayor's Award of Excellence. It's honorary presented to Dr. Faith Young for being a community-wide healthcare hero in Aurora and for being a consistent voice, resource, and advocate for the health and well-being of our Aurora's Black and Latino communities. Let's give her another round of applause.
Get that out to everyone and post it on our social media. Thank you, Dr. Faith Young. Appreciate it. Thank you, Mayor.
All right, this is where we get into the body of our agenda today. So if anyone is just here for presentations and want to take leave, we understand, appreciate it, but I will go ahead and start with public comment. Madam Clerk, do we have any members of the public wishing to offer public comment?
We do not, Mr. Mayor.
All right, let's go on to the next portion of the agenda, committee reports. Chairwoman Patty Smith, can you give the Building, Zoning, and Economic Development Committee report, please?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I'm happy to. The Building, Zoning, and Economic Development Committee met on August 23rd, 2023, and reviewed the following items. 23-0636, an ordinance establishing a conditional use plan development, approving the 10110 Cross Street Plan description and amending Chapter 49 of the Code of Ordinance, City of Aurora, by modifying the zoning map attached thereto to an underlying zoning of DF Downtown Fringe District of the property located at 110 Cross Street and 213 South River Street. Consent?
Consent?
Unfinished? Did you want to, staff?
Yeah, and just a real brief, the petitioner is JH Real Estate, and they are looking for approval to use this long-time unused building, historical building, and to bring us a 36-seat brewery and 56-seat additional seats outside with a full kitchen for food and residential upstairs. So it looks like a lovely opportunity.
I just wanted to add some additional information. At the last meeting, they asked staff and the petitioners to look at some additional information for parking. So we did research that. Catty corner to this site we discussed as a city parking lot. It is identified as a Mercury lot. So there's no fee for the parking except for overnight parking. They do issue permit parking for overnight. It's $15 per quarter. It is currently, there are some people of Aurora Street Plaza who do use this parking lot, but we even spoke to residents of that and says that they've never had any issue. It's very underutilized. So at this moment, it's not overparked. So there's definitely plenty of parking in that lot for the 15 apartments. And then we also will include it, and we confirmed with economic development, will be included in the downtown parking study as well, looking at the lot. And we also, there was brought up street trees. So staff provided the developers with the street tree information, and they're happy to take a look at that and install those trees. And the developers are here if there's any other questions.
I have a quick question.
I'm sorry, Alderman Bate.
Thank you, Jill, for getting back to us about the parking issue. I just wanted to ask, will there be a special kind of exhaust so there is no smell from the brewery to the apartments? Or
I think I'll hand that over to the petitioners. I know they're working with our building department. I'm sure that they're meeting all the code requirements, and I think there are requirements for that issue, but I'm sure they have more information.
Committee, Eric Cervantes with JH Real Estate Partners. Alderwoman, yes, there is a kitchen exhaust fan for the restaurant and is located on the south side of the building. And the south side of the building has no windows or openings to the apartments. And all of the other intakes, fresh air intakes, are all per code the correct distance away from that exhaust. So there won't be any intermixing of smells between the restaurant and the apartments.
and will there be any sound issue from the brewery?
We're not anticipating any, no.
Thank you.
Alderman Smith?
Yes. What is this building currently being used for?
The building is currently unused.
Okay, and how long has it sat unused? Do you know?
I mean, I'm not sure the exact durations. There were a few companies here and there, but for the most part, for the last 60 to 70 years, it's not been utilized to its full potential.
Okay, thank you.
As a matter of fact, it's the bottom floor that's been used by different companies. The upper floors have not been used
That's
for
correct.
60 to 70 years.
That's correct, sir.
So now we're going to put it to full use,
Yes.
upper floor, and also regain tax dollars and revenue for our city.
Any other questions? All right, just for the record, this does not have to go on consent or unfinished. It's for information only. No action needed here at COW. Thank you very much. Oh, I'm sorry, did you,
Sorry, Mr. Mayor, this does need to go to full city council
so
approval.
which one does? All right, I apologize, I'll take that back. So unfinished per one of the alders.
And
That's all right, it's all right.
second item for
Go ahead.
BZ&E's 230637, a resolution approving a final plan for property located at 110 Cross Street for a restaurant, food and beverage service, 2500 use, and multifamily dwelling, 1140 use.
Consent.
Go ahead.
Related item.
Related, all right, no
And
objection.
That's all
Unfinished.
for the
All right.
BZ&E, Mr. Mayor.
Unfinished. All right, let's go to the next portion of the agenda. Chairman Franco, can you give the Finance Committee report?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, the Finance Committee met on August 24, 2023, and reviewed the following items: 23-0605, a resolution authorizing an agreement with Humana to administer a Medicare Advantage plan for Medicare-eligible retirees for the period of January 1, 2024 through December 31st, 2025.
Consent.
No objection, time to go on consent.
Next is 23...
I'm sorry, hold on.
Just a quick question on all of these, and I'm okay with it going on consent. But the question is, do we run these through our collective bargaining units and they sign off on
HR?
these? Just out of curiosity in the process. Thank you.
No, the agreements for our health insurance items are not run through the agreement. There's provision and language in each of the contract, but these are provisions that the city negotiates outside of the collective bargaining agreement.
Thank you. No further questions.
You're welcome.
No objection, time to go on consent. Go ahead.
23-0606, a resolution establishing Blue Cross Blue Shield Advantage, HMO, for group health care services for the period of January 1, 2024 through December 31st, 2024.
Consent.
No objection, time to go on consent.
Next is 23-0607, a resolution establishing OAP and Value HSA health insurance plans and rates effective January 1, 2024 through December 31st, 2024.
No objection, time to go on consent.
Next is 23-0608, a resolution establishing health and dental insurance monthly rates for contributions for pre-Medicare retirees effective January 1, 2024 through December 31st,
Consent.
2024.
No objections, item go on consent.
Next is 23-0616, a resolution authorizing agreement for administrative services with Cigna Health and Life Insurance Company for PPO and Value HSA, group health, prescription benefits management, flexible spending, dental vision, COBRA, and stop-loss plan administration for period January 1, 2024 through December 31st, 2024.
Consent.
No objections, time to go on consent.
23-0623, a resolution establishing COBRA insurance monthly rates effective January 1, 2024 through December 31st, 2024.
Consent.
No objections, item go on consent. It looks like
Next
that
i-
concludes the issues concerning insurance. And just for the record, that was Alicia Lewis who spoke earlier, just for the record, so we have your name, department head for HR. All right, let's go on.
Well, you know what, I'm gonna jump right to the bottom, because there's a life insurance one,
Is there?
or
All right.
there's a life insurance one at the bottom. So that's 23-0693, a resolution authorizing Sun Life Insurance to provide life insurance services for January 1, 2024 through December 31st, 2025.
Consent.
No objections, time to go on consent.
So now we're out of the insurance business.
Thank you.
We're going to, let's see, 23-0630, an ordinance authorizing the purchase of 3.16 acre property located at 7 South 330 Eola Road to facilitate the construction of a new fire station number 9. And through the analysis, this was determined to be a feasible location. The initial asking price was 1.2 million, which was negotiated down by staff to $950,000.
Consent.
You know what? Why don't we have Fire give a quick, brief presentation on this, just to make everybody aware of what's going on, then we'll follow up with questions. Fire?
Good evening. Alex Minella, Senior Planner, Mayor's Office of Economic Development. I'm going to pass the baton to Dan Osman, Deputy Fire Chief with our Fire Department. If the council members have any question for staff, I'll be more than happy to answer.
Deputy Chief?
Good evening.
Ronnie?
Is there a question?
Yeah, you want to just give a brief presentation of what exactly it is we're looking at, and why we're doing this?
Yes, so 2 years ago, we did a station location study. I think most of you had that record. And the information that was taken from that was based on the call volumes, the response times to the areas that they worked in. With the development of the North Farnsworth area, we're putting a station up there. That's a new station. So the current station number 9 needs to move. It's too close. So the station location put them in the ideal position as territory that we need. So when that was done, it wasn't based on any properties that were available. The initial one that we looked at was a little farther north, but because of the development by the mall and with Del Webb growing as much as they are farther south, works out better for us. And this property is right across the street from the ideal situation or position for the new station.
And just to be clear, that's call volume and response to that volume, is that correct?
Yes.
Question, Alderman Bay.
Just a simple question. What about traffic on Eola? Especially during school hours and work hours, it's jammed, and how will we address that?
Right, well, that's always a concern that we deal with, and using our lights and sirens. If they pull to the right a little bit, that's the best way we can do it. We know there are busier times, and we have vehicles that can come from different directions to go to those calls.
And the main entrance will be on Eola?
On Eola, yes. Yeah, and we don't need to put a stoplight. I think that was a question there. If we would put a stoplight there, it's too close to New York. There's not a need for a stoplight. And we pull up, our lights are on, we can exit when we need to.
So lights and sirens pretty much effectively act as that stoplight?
Yes. At New York and Eola,
New
yeah.
York.
Our Station 5 has a stoplight there, and that's activated when we get a call. We can press a button, and then by the time we get to Hill Avenue, that is already turned red for the oncoming traffic. So that's something we can explore too.
Alderman Book?
Yeah, just to follow up with that, is there a way to turn left out of there, or is it going to be right in, right out? Or, I don't know, at that point in time that we have the raised median.
There will be, yes, because we need to go north also.
Right.
So if there is, we
So
will cut
you
that
will
out,
cut
and that,
through
yes.
that. Okay.
Questions? All right, thank you, sir. A question for staff, anyone? All right, with no objection,
Consent?
this item will go on consent. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Next item is 23-0635, a resolution to approve change order number 1 with Geneva Construction Company in the amount of $160,000 for the Spruce Street water main repair and additional citywide resurfacing project costs.
Consent.
And due to a large water main break earlier this year, there was significant structural damage to Spruce Street, hence, a long-term repair is now needed. Complete this work under the 2023 City Resurfacing Program will allow for cost benefits as opposed to rebidding.
No objections, item will go on consent.
Next one is 23-0647, a resolution authorizing the chief financial officer to enter into an amended contract not to exceed the amount of $6,246,715 with Axon Enterprises Incorporated for the continued support of body-worn and in-squad cameras, tasers, and associated suite of related services provided by Axon Enterprises for the Aurora Police Department.
Consent.
This request is due to additional police staffing, new technologies, and to integrate multiple contracts into one amended contract.
No objections, item
Mr.
will go.
Mayor.
Alderman Lush.
I have a few questions. I'd like to put this on unfinished business.
A few questions, you want to ask the questions?
Yeah, sure. I'll be happy to answer those. Several. They're going to be over a couple of topics. But the MY90 Citizen Employee Survey software, we're currently using that. Are we using that for everybody who has an interaction with the Aurora Police, or is it random or targeted?
Good evening. I'm Brian Handel. I'm the Central Services Lieutenant for the Police Department. Alderman, to answer your question, My90 sends out surveys based on the nature of the call. It's only when they call the police department for assistance that a survey is then sent out, and it depends on the nature of the call. Obviously, we just had a presentation for suicide awareness. If somebody called us because a relative had committed suicide, we would not be sending out a survey, immediately after that type of call. It's more of the, I don't want to say lower level calls, because all our calls are important, but calls that might involve a neighbor dispute or a criminal damage to property or a burglary to their vehicle, and they're asked, how our service was, how our response was, do they feel that we met their needs, if not, why, and basically what they would like from the police department in the future, either reference their particular call or just in general. We also use that tool internally, provides employees a way to give their feelings on where they think the police department's at, what they suggest for improvements, or where they see we could be doing better.
Okay. And then I have some questions on the drone aspect of this.
Sure.
It looks like Axon's largely a taser company, but according to a January 2023 article in Forbes, in June 2022, 9 of the 13 members of weaponized drone maker Axon Enterprises Ethics Board left their posts after the company chose to move forward with a taser-equipped drone project they had recently voted against. The state of Illinois does not currently allow weaponization of drones, and Illinois law only offers limited police use of drone surveillance with facial recognition software for large crowds. That bill, HB 3902, was passed under the guise of preventing another Highland Park shooting. But how will these Axon drones, how will they deployed in the field, and will they have the capacity, not will they, but will they have the capacity to carry tasers and or facial recognition cameras and software?
So the Axon Air that's included in our contract is only the software used to operate the drones. We're not purchasing new drones. We're using the same drones that we've been using for several years. This software is actually what we're using now to control the drones and provide video footage. Aside from that, we comply with all Illinois laws regarding the use of the drones by a law enforcement agency.
So just to answer the two questions, so we can make clear, so there's no misconfusion. These drones do not do facial recognition, correct?
Correct.
And they do not deploy tasers
Correct.
in the sky. All right.
Good news. Thank you. And then The drone pilots, are those City of Aurora police officers operating the drone, or will it be a contractor?
No, those are City of Aurora police officers.
Okay, thank you. And then it looks like we recently renegotiated this contract in January and May, so why are we looking at it once again? I guess to look at a more complete package.
So we have 3 contracts with Axon currently. The original one was negotiated in 2021, which was for the bulk of our body cameras, tasers, and squad cameras, along with the software to use them and review them. I'm sorry, I can't recall if it was March or May of this year, we came back to the council because we had an increase of police officers. It was a little faster than we thought, luckily. It's a good thing that we were able to hire more police officers. But we did not have the body cameras ready for those officers, so we needed extra body cameras and the software licenses to go with that.
Okay, and then the last part is about the data collection from people's Ring doorbells, their surveillance equipment. And how does that get collected and then added to evidence.com?
That's only if the citizen provides it to us. So if we respond to a call either at that house or in the neighborhood and we notice there's a camera, we can talk to the person. If they're willing to share with us, we send them a text or an email, and then they can provide whatever video or photos or digital evidence they have. And then it's sent to us to triage to make sure it's actually video or footage that's related to the case. And if we accept it, then it goes into our digital evidence management system.
So if somebody steals an Amazon package and it's captured on a Ring doorbell, then
they can provide us with that
they have
video.
to voluntarily
Yes.
give it to us.
It's mostly a time-saving feature where now we don't have to collect items on flash drives or hard drives or disks or anything. This is all done through basically the internet.
Okay, thank you so much, appreciate it.
Alderman Donnell. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Lieutenant, I was at the committee, but many others wouldn't. Could you summarize the advantages to what's your recommendation of the upgrade and renewal for how we package these together?
Sure, I'll be brief, but sometimes it's a little easier to look at the slides here. So right there, you can see the side-by-side for what we currently have under 3 contracts is on the left side of the column, and the right side would be that new amended contract. The yellow triangles are the Axon logos. That's everything that is bundled together. That gives us some discounts when we're able to bundle. That first original contract, a lot of the software pieces, such as Axon Performance, which lets us do random reviews of officers' body camera, or the Axon Respond, which lets us have GPS tracking of the officers' cameras and live stream them in emergencies. That stuff had to be purchased a la carte. So now that it's bundled together, there's some cost savings with that. There's also some additional features where we can play third-party video inside evidence.com, which is the digital evidence management software, instead of having to download it and play it in another server. The other big changes is our body cameras. These are currently the Axon Body 3s. The Axon Body 4s just came out. We get an equipment refresh under our current contract next year, so we'll be getting the Body 4s, but this new amended contracts would gain us an additional equipment refresh in 2026. And again, if there's new cameras out by then, we would get those new cameras. We would also have an equipment refresh for our squad car cameras under this new contract. And then the impetus for going back to negotiations and re-examining this contract, in addition to that stuff, is the TASER 10, which Axon just released earlier this year. It represents a significant improvement over the TASER 7, which is what we currently carry. The TASER is our most effective non-lethal weapon that we can use out in the field. The TASER 10 is more accurate, it has more probes, so it's an increased likelihood that we'll have a successful deployment, and it also has a 45-foot effective range compared to the 25-foot range of our current TASER, so it doubles the amount of space we have, giving us more time and space to negotiate, to talk, to de-escalate before we have to deploy the TASER or use lethal force if we don't have that time and space to use it. Does that cover all of the...
So just to be clear, the new TASER extends the space and protects both the police officer and the particular assailant.
Yes.
So that you don't have to get as close to use it.
Don't have to get as close, and we have more time, which gives us more options on what we need to do.
And I don't know that if you're in positions, Mr. Alexandru, I believe he's in the other room. Can you come into the council chambers, please? Mr. Alexandru, I'd like you to explain to the council, recognizing that we are going to be getting upgrades, how you've negotiated to save more money for us in the long run.
Alex Alexandru, Chief Management Officer. Yes, the department staff, the leadership did a great job getting and soliciting the best package they could. They asked me to come in from the mayor's office to look at the bigger picture, also working with our budget staff. We already had funds budgeted for the first iteration of this, but again, they gave us a number of different options. We asked for a lot of these things that are represented by the yellow axon medallions, or whatever you call them, to bundle them, and in the end, I think we were at about 8.2 million, and through some good old-fashioned negotiating, we got it down to the price here. And we had an opportunity to add more years, but as a team, we talked about it and said the way this technology is evolving so quickly, it made more sense to agree to this set of terms. Even in there, we got an additional 2 years, and it was very important for us to have, when new technology comes out, for us to have it included and not have so many things a la carte. So we, in our view, this is more than the tasers. This is that whole package, and I heard the My 90 discussion earlier. That's been very successful to date, so it was important for us to continue that here. So I think in the end, we saved money, but we were very efficient and effective about it, and as you can see by all of the items that the company's included. And the department's been very happy with working with them, so has IT, been very happy with working with them. So it was a very good, productive negotiation.
Question?
If I ask a quick follow-up question on the negotiations. I guess I was confused about the drones and the drone pilots. Why are those included in the contract if those are City of Aurora police officers? I mean, it shows $0 that we're spending on those.
Yeah, we didn't hire them to pilot our drones, and I think Lieutenant mentioned it. It really is, we're striving citywide for integration. Integration leads to less problems, easier use by our staff, and so we have drones. We're probably the leading municipal agency on the deployment of drones. In fact, that legislation you mentioned, the city spearheaded that. And it was more than just preventing another Highland Park. But internally, we look at how does our software sync up with use of a drone. So what good is a drone if it captures some footage of a scene, but we can't properly download it and use it in evidence.com or any of our systems? So as you can see, we are using their software, not their drones.
Right.
We're using our own, and we have trained officers and trained folks in IT who pilot the drones per the regulations that the FAA or the state deploy. So I don't want to confuse that. That says air drones, but it's really the software.
Okay, and then is there any indication that some of these items that are being offered for $0 will have a price tag on them later?
That they will have a price tag on them later?
I'm assuming they're going to have a price tag on them later.
Not during this contract.
I understand that. But once we sort of become dependent on the software, right, there's going to be annual increases from the software company.
These numbers are some of what Alex was able to negotiate down, so they were able to reduce the price.
Please speak in the microphone.
I'm sorry. The numbers that are up there are the prices after the discounts that have been negotiated. So those discounts are reflected there. There was an original cost. They zeroed them out as part of the negotiating and bundling discounts.
Okay, thank you. And then Mr. Alexander was the negotiator, it sounds like.
At the end, but it was a team effort.
Thank you.
Consent.
I've already, unfinished, please, thank you.
All right, we moving on?
Yep.
All right. 23-0651, a resolution authorizing Director of Purchasing to execute a contract with Tanisco Incorporated, Yorkville, Illinois, in the amount of $219,179.90 for the installation of a new river railing near the West Benton Street Bridge and replacement of deteriorating railing near the Tivoli Plaza.
Consent.
Consent.
No objection, Dr. Jorgensen.
23-0655, a resolution increasing the authorized amount due to the Illinois Department of Transportation for the city's share of the Illinois Route 34 grade crossing structure over the CN Railroad project to $320,509.59.
Consent.
No objection, Dr. Jorgensen.
I'm going to read three in a row because they're all related. 23-0681, an ordinance designating the River Vine Tax Increment Financing District redevelopment project area.
Consent.
23-0682, an ordinance approving the City of Aurora River Vine Tax Increment Financing District redevelopment project, area redevelopment plan and project.
Consent.
And 23-0683, an ordinance adopting tax increment findings for the City of Aurora River Vine Tax Increment Financing District.
I'm going to go with unfinished on those,
All right, so
and
he's got unfinished
I've only got
on
one
those.
question, and
You have a question for economic development?
Yep.
What's your question?
the newspaper recently reported that there was a $6.6 million cap on the Rivervine TIF, but the language of the original redevelopment agreement after laying out the $8.6 million taxpayer incentive on page 3 says the city has further authorized expenditures disbursements as further set forth in the agreement in order to induce the developer to complete the project. So my question is, did the city staff tell the Beacon News this? There was a $6.6 million cap, or did the Beacon come up with that language on their own?
Well, can't really answer why the Beacon writes whatever they wrote and who wrote it, so that's not a question that I'm going to allow staff to answer. So if you're going to put this on unfinished, we'll put it on unfinished.
I have one more response. I'd like to just respond also to what, I was cut off in the last meeting and discussion on River Vine. So I do want to respond because it was implied that the TIF 101 hearing that I held included misinformation and lies. And then Alderman Franco and Alderwoman Smith both suggested the same thing. Alderman Franco specifically said, we're not taking money away, that's just the wrong narrative. I take umbrage with that because we keep saying that, but it's definitely not true. We have the experts here who are going to tell you it's not true, on and on and
Point
on.
of order here. Can we get back to the point
I
of
no
order?
longer recognize the
Yeah.
speaker. We're going to
Yeah,
move on
yeah,
from
we
that.
can,
Yeah, we'll
this
move
is
on.
ridiculous, sitting here throwing jabs.
Go
It's
ahead, go ahead. Read the next one.
So we had those three on unfinished, so we're going to go to three more that are very similar. 23-0684, an ordinance designating the City of Aurora Cross Street Tax Increment Financing District redevelopment project area.
Consent.
23-0685, an ordinance approving the City of
No
Aurora
objection, I'm
Cross
going.
Street Tax Increment
Unfinished.
Financing District redevelopment project, area redevelopment plan and project. And 23-0686, an ordinance adopting tax increment financing for the City of Aurora Cross Street Tax Increment Financing District.
Consent. and
Unfinished on all
consent.
three.
Unfinished on those.
Thank you.
All right, the next one is 23-0687, a resolution ratifying the purchase of upgraded SCADA system software for the Water Production Division. And I guess I have a question for corporate counsel. Are we going, was there a situation with this at all?
Are we going to hold this for 2 weeks here, Committee of the Whole?
Well, there is an option to hold it. I know there was some discussion with the IT department last week. I have a meeting, a Zoom meeting with their attorneys to hopefully iron everything out with the contract. We could hold it here for 2 weeks, or you could put it on unfinished business for city council next week. I know there is some issues with this. This has already been installed. It's a product that the city is using. There's issues of whether there needs maintenance or the ability to access help from the company. We don't have until we have a contract in place.
Do we believe we'll have information in the next week to, even if you forward it today, we'll have information that'll be able to allow it to be passed to city council?
I believe so.
All right.
So
Unfinished.
there is urgency somewhat. So we want to
unfinished.
get it expedited as quickly as we can. I'm
Understand.
guessing based on what you're saying.
Yes, the service agreement that had lapsed.
So we're going to hold this.
No, we're going to put it on unfinished.
We're going to put it on finish to the city council. Okay, all right. Based on that concludes the finance committee report.
Thank you, kind sir. Chairman Seville, can you give the Public Health, Safety, and Transportation Committee report, please?
Yes, thank you, Mayor. The first item, which was discussed when we met on August 22nd, is 23-0260, resolution authorizing the Director of Purchasing to enter an agreement to replace the Central Fire Station Bay floor heaters with Hartlip and Sons Incorporated, the amount of $79,819. This is to replace the current heaters, which are 42 years old. So this can go on consent. The next item is 23-0584, resolution to purchase 10 self-contained breathing apparatus from municipal emergency services for $100,080.
Consent.
This is 10 units, and it's for medic 13, truck 14, and engine 13. This can go
No
on
objection,
consent.
Dr. Wilkinson.
And the next four Our charitable solicitations, they can go on, this is for information only, but I'll read all of them. It's 23-0649, charitable solicitation application for the Knights of Columbus Council, 736 Tootsie Roll Drive on September 15th through September 17th, 2023. 23-0650, charitable solicitation application for the Scouts BSA Troop 81 annual pancake breakfast fundraiser to be held at Mattia Valley High School on October 28th, 2023. 23-0674, charitable solicitation application for the St. Joseph Knights of Columbus Tootsie Roll Drive on September 1st through September 23rd, 2023. And finally, the last one is 23-0688, charitable solicitation application for Girl Scouts of Northern Illinois Fall Product Program selling nuts, candies, magazines on September 21st through October 22nd, 2023. And that's the Public Health, Safety, and Transportation Committee.
Thank you very much, sir. Chairwoman Garza, Wani Garza, can you give the Infrastructure and Technology Committee report, please?
Yes, Mayor. We met on August 21st, 23. The first item is 23-0639, a resolution authorizing the Director of Purchasing to enter into a professional service agreement with OLEA Network Inc., DBA OLEA Edge Analytics, Big Cape, Texas, for large water meter sensors and analytical services, and the amount of $285,300.
Consent.
Judge Song, go ahead.
23-0642, a resolution authorizing a contract with Performance Construction and Engineering LLC, 217 West Jan Street, Plano, Illinois, 60545, and the amount of $858,878.00 for the East Park Avenue and South Avenue sewer separation and water main replacement project located in Ward 3 and 4.
Consent.
No objection, I have consent.
23-0675, a resolution authorizing the Director of Purchasing to accept for ton dump fees from Shell landfill for the disposal of non-special and special excavated spoils.
Consent.
No objections, I'm going.
They conclude the meeting, Mayor.
Thank you, ma'am. Chairman Warman, will you give the Rules Administration Procedure Committee report, please?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Rules Administration Procedure Committee met on August 15th, 2023, and reviewed the following items. 23-0597, the disclosure of economic interests and outside employment by officers and employees under city ordinance. This is just information only for now. No actions needed on that item. We should bring something early October to council, or city council for a vote. Next item, 23-0618, resolution authorizing Ward 1 Business Grant Program 50/50 match up to $5,000 per project per year for any qualifying businesses for the purpose of upgrading or improving the exterior of their property.
Consent.
Consent.
Objection, I have consent.
Next item, 23-0634, an ordinance amending Chapter 25, Article 11, Section 25-266 of the Code of Ordinances.
Consent.
Consent.
Objections, I have consent.
Next item, 23-0638, a resolution approving the appointment of Samira Galvez to the Human Relations Commission.
Consent.
Consent.
Objections, I have consent.
Next item, 23-0640, a resolution approving the appointment of David Peterson to the Bicycle, Pedestrian, and Transit Advisory Board.
Consent.
Objections, I have consent.
And final item, 23-0641, a resolution approving the appointments of Edwick Panda, Sayi Sabrira Yakatori, Saia Sabrira Yakatori to the Aurora Youth Council.
Consent.
Consent.
Objections, I have consent.
That concludes Rules Administration and Procedures Committee.
Thank you very much. We've already done, that concludes committee reports. We've already done the mayor's report for the day. Staff report, Mr. John Curley.
Thanks, Mayor and Council. I wanted to go over an important deadline that just passed, that we talked about at council just more than 5.5 years ago. It's the sunsetting lodging houses. If you remember talking about, anyone on council at the time would remember talking about lodging houses. So I wanted to talk about a little history for anyone who wasn't here at the time, and talk about the changes that were made and the effects of the resolutions that were, or the items that were changed in our ordinances. So at the end of the post-housing bubble, we were getting inundated with a lot of questions and concerns from neighborhoods about rental and lodging house issues. We, through the planning department, started what's called an ANPI study, or Aurora Neighborhood Planning Initiative. That was several years long, involved several public forums and meetings. I think several of you participated in those. And we attempted to incorporate best practices from published documents about this topic in Illinois, as well as Metropolitan Mayors Caucus and IML best practices. So the priority tasks that we gleaned from these public meetings were...
Just to be clear, the IML best practice is Illinois Municipal League.
Yep,
just
I'm
for
sorry.
those
Yep,
that don't know
sorry
what
about that. So gleaning from these public meetings, we know this is what the ANPI process, the Aurora Neighborhood Planning Initiative process does, is tease out what the issues are and then try and come up with resolutions for the issues to deal with neighborhood problems. We heard loud and clear from the public that there were issues with an intensification of use in neighborhoods where multiple unrelated individuals were living. On the right side of the column here, the items that we end up focusing on based on the public feedback we got were property maintenance, parking of cars on the property, cars parked on the street. Some of the issues we got were there were only minimum standards being met. There was no TLC taking place at these rental properties. Again, these were licensed properties that we issued licenses for, as they are rentals. Noise and activity late into the evening, people coming and going at all hours, number of bedrooms, and city issue permits and the cities issuing of permits for additional bedrooms, and the city not enforcing code. So these were the things we gleaned from the public meetings, and I'm going to go into kind of what was done and what was changed in order to try and address these issues. So the items that we, in addition to the public input, we did a lot of inspections on the front end of this to determine or help ascertain what other concerns we would have as an inspection staff that's going into these properties to issue licenses. And some of those items are identified on this slide. Again, the public identified parking issues. We found electrical safety issues, which I'll talk about all of these in a little bit more depth as we go into a slide specific for them. Smoke alarms, trash bin sizes, usage of trash bins, and landscaping. Again, we were attempting to address all of those items, but not eliminate the use of this, or not eliminate these uses entirely, but trying to address the actual concerns of the neighborhood and the safety concerns that we witnessed directly, so that we'd have a safe environment for these renters, as well as reduce some of the neighborhood concerns. So the multifaceted approach that we undertook at the time was for unrelated rentals that are in excess of 3 unrelated individuals. That was some definition changes that we created to get to this definition. We addressed individually assessed parking spaces, personal storage, electrical upgrades, trash bins, landscaping, and then a monitored alarm system. If you'll remember, and I've answered a couple questions about this recently, if you remember the debate at council at the time, the last thing we changed before adopting this, the suggestion coming from staff was a sprinkler system, and we, in council, in discussions at council, moved to a monitored alarm system in lieu of a sprinkler system, if you'll recall. So again, we made some definition changes to what a lodging house is. It no longer required rent to be paid. That was a debate or a discussion point that we had in our licensing program all the time. There's really no way for staff to determine whether rent's being paid or not. So I want to go into kind of the issues and how they were being addressed. The little snippet of some pictures on the right there kind of describes this individually accessible parking. So one of the one of the items, we had multiple of them, neighborhood complaints we had is in a situation like this where there's a single driveway and multiple people perhaps not cooperatively moving cars in and out of the driveway, they either wouldn't use the driveway or the off-street parking and just simply park on the street, or believe it or not, they would run through the front yard or the neighbor's front yard and rut up the yard enough that there would be ruts So that was one thing we were trying to address, is make sure that there's enough individually accessed parking spaces. In these two examples, you see 3 cars on the left example, 4 cars on the right example. This particular individual expanded, if you notice, they expanded their rear parking pad to accommodate an additional car, and all 4 in that example are individually accessible according to our definition, and therefore you would be permitted to have 4 individuals there instead of just the 3, which would be the example on the left. This is way too small to read, and I apologize. It's actually a slide from before. I apologize for before as well. So electrical upgrades. What we found with respect to electrical items were the most concerning thing to me with my background. If you think about a lodging house or a rooming house where there's a potential for all of the residents to control their own refrigerator, their own microwave, their own hot plate, their own computer, all of that stuff's going to end up being in their controlled room, the one room that they have. A lot of the structures that we have in town were not set up for that many electrical devices, some of which require dedicated circuits in our codes, in the bedrooms. So we had cord violations that we would constantly get out of there, had no high level of confidence that it would be not just redone the minute that we pass an inspection. So dealing with electrical upgrades was an important part of the suggestions that we made. So the a lodging house, and we've had 2 actually, I'll get there in a second, had 2 actually become lodging houses. They went through and verified that their electrical system meets the 2014. They've got GFCI outlets and ground fault protection and arc fault protection, and had to run some additional neutral wires to make the arc fault work, as well as add some outlets. So that's electrical. An alarm system, as I mentioned, initially when this came to council 5.5 years ago, staff suggestion was a sprinkler system. In working through with the concerned persons, the concerned lodging house owners at the time, and working through with council, we landed rather on a smoke detection system that's monitored. So this is more than a typical 1 and 2 family even interconnected alarm system. So if one device goes off, they go off in all of your home if you happen to have that. This is a monitored alarm system. It will notify a monitoring company and therefore our fire department to start rolling trucks before anyone calls and does anything. So that's the big benefit of having this type of an alarm system in this situation. Oops, sorry, I skipped something. So why am I up here right now talking about this? So during the adoption process, staff and council thought it was wise to allow a grandfathering or a sunsetting of the current uses that had already been licensed as this use for many years, and it gave them a 5-year window to revert back to a lesser intense use or choose to upgrade the facility to meet the new requirements. And I'll talk about kind of the success of that in a second here. But that's why I'm here now.
That sunset that, and I was an alderman at the time, and I believe at least 6 of us were on city council at the time, that was against the dismay of the community members that wanted it to happen immediately. We thought it would be fair to give a long period of time for these folks to kind of unwind and make sure we looked out for those individuals that had lived in those houses. And this was no slight to them. It was the owners of the property that hadn't been taking care of these properties for so many years.
Dead on, Mayor. That was not embraced by everyone. It was definitely a kind of a middle-of-the-road decision, but it did, for those who were concerned about this use, it did stop the promulgation of additional ones being created. So that's what the concerned neighbors might have gotten right away. And here we are up at this 5-year window now, where we were expecting everyone to revert back to another use or have the remodeling completed. This was my suggestion back then, although the numbers have gone up a little bit, on what it might cost in a typical 60s ranch to make these conversions. Again, this actually is an example of one of the 2 lodging houses that we have in town now. They did go through this, have met all of these requirements, and I can tell you it's a safe, and the people are cooperatively using the parking. So it seems like it's working in this instance. So I wanted to kind of go over the kind of performance of the regulation changes that we went through. It's a little bit of a busy slide. Sorry, I'm guilty of that frequently. In the lower left, there was 73 of these lodging houses. I think when I presented 5.5 years ago, we knew of 62. We found, as things went forward, we found out about some more that existed that we hadn't had classified at the time. So if you look at where we're at standing here today, 90% of the sunsetting lodging houses have reverted to a lesser intense use. Starting at 12 o'clock there, if you go through the blue, 44% or 32 of these structures have reconverted or reverted back to owner-occupied structures. Back through 6 o'clock now in the orange, 24 or 33% have reverted to a lesser intense use of unrelated individuals where there are 3 or fewer, and they still get to be licensed as a one unit occupied property. Excuse me. 14% or 10 of these reverted to a single family rental. So still a rental, but to a single family. As of, and the deadline, if you didn't notice on the previous slide, was literally last Thursday. So we're catching up on paperwork, chasing down people that owe us information. There's 6 of these sunsetting lodging houses that we still need to figure out what the status is and perhaps pursue some hearings or figure out how they're going to pursue compliance. And then the other thing I wanted to mention is that we are also, although I'm sure it's shy of the actual number, we know for sure that 8 of these structures, or 8 structures, averted the idea of even converting into lodging houses after they looked into the regulations after they were adopted. And as I mentioned, there's 2 lodging houses that have been created. They're set up and licensed for that now, and there's 1 person attempting to do that, but in the very early stages, I'm not certain that they're going to pursue it completely or not. And that's what I wanted to go through.
Questions? Alderman Frankel.
Jen, I know this was not part of this, but recently I talked to somebody about Airbnbs. How does that have any correlation with this is going forward, how we're going to address Airbnbs? Because I think we need to update or we don't have the wording in there that we want to address that going forward.
Yeah, we have talked about the possibility of some adoption of Airbnb legislation. I believe we put that on hold, waiting for some changes or activity in Springfield, and we need to circle back as staff and figure out if we're going to pursue that or not. Currently, those are being leased like rentals, but they are different than that, and I think we could look at some different regulations for that.
Thank you.
Alderman Donnell.
Thank you, Mayor. John, thanks for your presentation. I think, as we all know, the university neighbors was primarily 4th and 5th Ward, so the area was focused on that. But as you and I talked, this ordinance was passed citywide, correct?
It is citywide. If I recall correctly, legal advice at the time would be that it might have been discriminatory to not apply it citywide. And the 73 properties that I was tracking to get this information happened in every ward with one exception. Alderman Bug, Ward 9, did not have one I was tracking. But otherwise, everyone else had a lodging house that we were tracking.
I want to personally thank you for your efforts and your presentation tonight.
Thank you.
Alderman Seville.
Yeah, Mr. Mayor, I want to thank you for the staff presentation. I think that's very helpful, giving us an update of what's been going on in the last 5 years. And I was wondering if John Curley could share this with us with a PDF. Just send that to us.
Oh, certainly.
Presentation.
Certainly, yeah.
Sure, yeah. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Alderman Smith.
Thank you. Very interesting presentation. I appreciate it. I'm glad to know that we've made some progress in this. I do want to second what Alderman Franco said. Airbnbs have creeped into my ward in a couple different places, and I don't think it's something we should let go. I know it's not part of what we're talking about today, so I apologize for bringing that up, but I think it's something we need to have further discussion on.
Thank you.
And just so to clarify and make the council aware, you said that after doing an investigation, we determined that we had these 72 homes that were outside of the code that were given that 5-year period. How many came into compliance over the 5 years?
Either by reduction of the number of people or changing the way it was being used, all but 6 are currently in compliance.
That's pretty cool. Progress.
Any other questions? Alderman
John,
Garza.
can you explain better about the grandfather?
Mhm.
How they're going to be, the 5 years you're talking about?
So the 5-year period just ended.
So they,
It
so people understand, because a lot of people have the grandfather permit or the grandfather license.
Mhm. Well, for this use type, we have been sending notifications through the renewals for the last 3 years. I don't know if you notice, once in a while, we'll send out departmental newsletters to everyone who's licensed as well. This topic has been highlighted in those newsletters for the last 3 years as well. So we have been, in addition to all of the public discussion that happened when it was adopted, we have been trying to remind people. And based on the results, all but 6 were already there by the time we started adding up all the numbers here this year.
This going to include also the driveways, or it's just the house, the property? Some properties have the driveways, and it's still with the gravel, and they say it's because there's grandfather permit or grandfather license.
So the pavement regulations are related to this, but it's not, I think what you're talking about is the actual pavement regulations. And we'll have to talk about, we have to probably include Ruthian on this too. I do know there are some locations that we have not cited what I would say is substandard paving because of some kind of grandfathering, but I'd have to look into the details of that. I think they're few and far between, I believe.
Yes.
I know one of them, I think, is owned by a large utility company instead of the owner of the rental is one.
Yes.
But John, just to be clear, just as far as the housing goes, not the parking, but as far as the housing goes, and all these 72 and only 6 didn't come into compliance, there was no grandfathering allowed in the new ordinance, is that correct?
The grandfathering ended Thursday, and now those 6 need to either come into conformance one of 3 or 4 ways. So we'll be verifying what their plans are and perhaps bringing them to hearings if they don't pursue compliance.
And of those 6, are you aware how many actually participated in these hearings 5 years ago and was aware that this was going to happen?
Oh, I know several of them did. I couldn't tell you for certain all 6 did, but I know several did.
Questions?
I have other question about the rental properties. So how many people want to be allowed for family or relatives?
There's not a limitation, so there's no ordinance limitation on family the number of family occupants. Again, that wouldn't be a rental situation anyway. So we do not have regulations that limit the number of family members who live in a structure.
Yeah, because I have so many properties in second ward like that. So they say it's a family member, but it's not. So how we can prove that? Because they use the whole driveways and the whole street, and we have a lot of houses like that, with a lot of people in the house, also in the basements.
So usually it would start like an overcrowding complaint, and
Yes.
the research that we do has to do with who's getting mail at that location, utility information at that location, and we do what we can to ascertain who lives there and if in fact they meet the definition of family or not.
Yeah, because, we have complaints for that, but unfortunately, we can approve sometimes.
And that, Alderman Garza, is a overcrowding discussion that we have to consistently have, especially in our older neighborhoods where there are no driveways and everybody parks on the street, no garages. So we're going to consistently have those by providing more housing opportunities for people. But we're going to always be talking about that, especially, on the east side where it's landlocked. Alderman Seville.
Yeah, just to clarify, the square footage of a home is regulated by the Boca Code, and that's how we enforce whether they have too many people in the home or not. Is that correct?
Yeah, so the occupancy standards that we adopt they actually stemmed from HUD regulations from years ago. That's what the International Code Council has adopted. We adopted the International Property Maintenance Code, which defines those occupancy standards. In this regulation for lodging houses, We modified that slightly by making sure that there was a small amount of storage, like a closet essentially, in each of the bedrooms. So that is one small modification that we made, but only in this particular license type. Otherwise, you're correct, the HUD standards, the national standards of the occupancy standards that we enforce, it's pretty much a national standard.
Alderman Janelle, then we'll come back to Alderman Lesh.
And I think Alderman Garza brings up a great point. There is a lot of confusion on what the difference between a boarding house is and maybe a rental house or an owner-occupied that has a family. And correct me if I'm wrong, but the family is defined by the federal government. We can't get into that. Is that correct?
We have defined family as it relates to our rental program. It's a very broad definition. In fact, when these regulations were being adopted, it was broad. The definition of family that we had was broadened actually to make sure that we weren't to make sure that we were complying with federal definitions of family.
Thank you.
Alderman Lesh.
Just, first of all, thank you for being a newcomer. That was helpful presentation from the Wayback Machine.
Sure.
And just following up on Alderwoman Garza's question about the gravel parking lots, do we know roughly how many of those still exist in the city of Aurora? And go ahead.
I don't know the answer to that. That's some research that we'd have to dig into to get back to you all.
Okay, and then are there any incentive programs whatsoever to help people? Because a lot of those are older homes with senior citizens in them to assist in this as we sort of are trying to clean up the neighborhoods and replace the gravel with pave or concrete.
For many years, the city's been supporting some non-for-profits that help in this area. So the answer is indirectly, yes. Have there been programs that were direct? I believe 15, 18 years ago, there might have been a couple. But the ones I remember working with primarily have been the non-for-profits that we support through CDBG funding and some other funding to help people who have low mod income, essentially people.
Any other questions? None? Ms. Sackles? None? All right, well, thank you very much for the presentation. We appreciate it. All right, that concludes our staff report by Mr. John Curley, Chief Development Services Officer. All right, there is no need for a closed session. However, there is a special city council meeting that will be held immediately upon the adjournment of the COW.
Motion to adjourn.
Mr. Mayor.
And a motion to
Second.
adjourn by, I'm sorry, Alderman Book?
Thank you. I have a question for legal. Correct me if I'm wrong. On point of order is only to be used to correct a procedural issue. Is that correct?
Yes.
Point of order is not used to stop discussion, shut down discussion. There's other means to do that. There's other motions and things.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
I'm going to add to
Alderman
that.
Smith.
Point of order is also used that when we are talking about a specific item and/or ordinance, if the discussion goes so far off the item and/or ordinance, we're no longer having the conversation that's in front of us. That's another time point of order is used, which is why I used it today.
Question for legal.
Alderman Lesh?
What legal right does the mayor have to silence a duly elected official in an important discussion on an issue that affects the taxpayers and electoral body?
Well, to frame the question is actually what right does the mayor have? The mayor is in charge of the meeting. That's his right.
Thank you. All right, there's been a motion to adjourn the meeting by
Second.
Alderman Smith, second by Alderman Yamas. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, the special city council meeting to follow immediately, so we don't have to go anywhere. Let's go ahead and get this started. All right, there's, okay. All right. You want me to ask after I start the meeting? Ready? The special meeting of the Aurora City Council for September 5th, 2023 is hereby called to order. Will the clerk please call the roll?
Alderman Yamas?
Here.
Alderwoman Garza.
Here.
Alderman Masiacos.
Present.
Alderman Donnell.
Here.
Alderman Franco.
Here.
Alderman Seville.
Here.
Alderwoman Smith.
Here.
Alderman Bug.
Here.
Alderwoman Bade.
Here.
Alderman Lash.
Present.
Alderman Warman.
Here.
Mayor Irvin's present.
Is there a motion to approve the appointment of Sergeant
So
Arms for
moved.
this meeting? Motion moved by Alderman Smith, second by Alderman Garza. All in favor?
Aye.
All right. Before we get started, Mr. Mohammed, there was a sign-in sheet for anyone who might want to make a public comment. Is there anyone that would like to make? No, we got the sheet here. We got it. We just forgot to put it out. So is there anyone for this particular meeting? I know we had public comment, and there was nobody to speak for COW, but this is a brand-new meeting for City Council. So I want to give the opportunity for anyone that did not get to sign up for public speaking if they choose. Is there anyone? Is there anyone? All right. Let's move on to the next part of the meeting. All right. Well, this meeting. Let's go on. So, is there a motion to suspend the rules to consider items under new business?
Second.
Motion by Carl Franco, Alderman Franco, seconded by Alderman Garza. Are there any questions or discussions? Madam Clerk, call the roll.
Alderman Yanis.
Yes.
Alderwoman Garza.
Yes.
Alderman Masiacos.
Yes.
Alderman Donnell.
Yes.
Alderman Franco.
Yes.
Alderman Seville.
Yes.
Alderwoman Smith.
Yes.
Alderman Bug.
Yes.
Alderwoman Bade.
Yes.
Alderman Lash.
Yes.
Alderman Warman.
Yes.
11 yes.
All right. Madam Clerk, will you read the first item under new business?
23-0715, a resolution appointing the new alderperson of the 7th Ward for the city of Aurora.
All right. So it's no secret that this has been a long process since we've determined that we've had to fill the vacant 7th Ward seat. We started out with 14 applicants and narrowed that down and interviewed 13 of the 14. Narrowed that down to 7 finalists for the 7th Ward, and then narrowed that down to 3 finalists from there. And you were all introduced to the 3 finalists that were vying to take that empty 7th Ward spot. But as I said on a number of occasions, there can only be one. And after some number of meetings with all the candidates, and those candidates meeting with the committee that actually assisted in interviewing, which included representation from the alderman's office through their chief of staff, an individual was chosen. That individual was born and raised on Aurora's west side. He attended West Aurora High School, District 129, from Holland Elementary School to Jefferson Middle School on to West. You know, as a young person, he had a world view of community services and civic responsibility that shaped his involvement in several Aurora-based youth programs, including the IMSA summer programs, the Boys to Men Mentoring Group, the Voices of Excellence Community Youth Choir that sang at many churches throughout our city. And after graduating from West Aurora High School in 2007, he attended Northern Illinois University, where he obtained a bachelor's degree in political science with a concentration in public law and policy. While in college, he immersed himself in civic duties and political opportunities, including volunteering and interning with the state and federal elected officials on both sides of the aisle. For the past decade, he made his career in the insurance industry and is currently a commercial construction underwriter for the Hartford Group, where he is an integral part and integrally involved with multi-million-dollar construction projects, where he writes the policies for these multi-million-dollar construction projects. You know, internally, he's a member of the Black Insurance Professional Network and the Employment Engagement Committee, which allows him to help direct community service projects throughout Aurora and throughout his service region. He's also a member of the Masonic DeKalb Lodge 144 and has been a member of the Macedonia Temple of God Church on Aurora's west side for more than 20 years. In 2019, he brought his first home as a young man in Ward 7, Georgetown neighborhood, and has enjoyed connecting with his neighbors and participating in the annual block parties that they have every single year. A fan of Shakita Hart Burns himself, since he was a teenager. And I know Alderman Hart Burns, if she were here today, would approve of him sitting in her seat. He is honored to be, it's an honor for us to ask for him to be appointed as 7th Ward Alderman and fill the remainder of Alderman Hart Burns' term. This individual is Brandon Tolliver. Let's give him a round of applause. Hold on 1 second. So, and again, this was no easy decision, but one that had to be made so we can continue the business of our city in the 7th Ward. So I'm going to ask if there's a motion to approve the resolution.
Someone.
Tolliver
Second.
take his place of the 7th Ward Alderman. There's been a motion by Alderman Garza, second by Alderman Smith. Are there any questions or discussions on this resolution? There being none, Madam Clerk, will you call the roll?
Alderman Yamas?
Yes.
Alderwoman Garza?
Yes.
Alderman Masiacos?
Yes.
Alderman Donnell?
Yes.
Alderman Franco?
Yes.
Alderman Seville?
Yes.
Alderwoman Smith?
Yes.
Alderman Bug?
Yes.
Alderwoman Bade?
Yes.
Alderman Lash?
Yes.
Alderman Warman?
Yes.
11 yes, 0 no.
Motion carries. This resolution is approved. Another round of applause for Brandon Tolliver. Will the clerk please read the title of the next item under new business?
23-0716, swearing in of the newly appointed alderperson of the 7th Ward of the City of Aurora.
All right, so on the 26th, this isn't, no action need to be taken on this, but they're on the 19th of this month, right after COW, we will find an appropriate place here and swear Mr. Tolliver in as Shakita would have liked it, so he can have all his family here. This was something we just talked to him about actually today, because we waited to the last minute to make the decision of how we're going to go forward. So he wants to bring his family and friends in so they can celebrate with him and with us, so we can take his seat as the next 7th Ward Alderman after 32 years of it being filled by someone we all knew and loved. So we're not going to ask him to speak today, because we want him to save it for when he gives his speech, on the 19th. But he will be seated with us on the City Council next week, as we're going to do an informal swearing in a little bit later, so we can hold that seat, and then we'll have the formal where he can give his speech and have his family and friends with us on the 19th. So again, one more round of applause for our brand new 7th Ward Alderman, Brandon Tolliver.
Mayor.
Mayor, question.
He's on? Okay.
Congratulations.
Alderman Masiacos.
Do we have to entertain a motion to modify an agenda item? 23-0716.
230716 is a non-business item that was
Okay.
really more of a informational only.
Okay.
So the swearing in, he's now, now that the resolution has been approved, he's entitled to his office at the time that he takes the oath of office, and that can be at any point.
Okay. I just wanted a point of clarification because I was anticipating him being sworn in.
Thank you,
Maybe
sir.
that's me as well.
Congratulations.
All right.
Another quick question, Mr. Mayor?
Alderman Lish.
Just to follow up on what Alderman Masiacos said, he can begin his orientation and get his email address and everything, get moving along that process currently, correct?
Those types of things don't require actually incumbency as an alderman, so those types of courtesies can already be begun. In order for him to act in any official capacity as an alderman, the oath will have to be administered.
We'll take care of that as we always do. Anyway, with no further business coming before the City Council.
Second.
Motion adjourned by Alderman Franco, seconded by Alderman Donnell. All in favor?
Aye.
This meeting is adjourned.